Hello everyone. In this video, we'll be discussing or we'll be analyzing General Studies Paper 2 from 2014 UPSC Mains. In this part, we'll be covering questions 1 to 10 and the rest of the questions will be covered in the second part. Before we go into the analysis of the previous year paper or analysis of the questions themselves, let me be very clear. The way that we are approaching or the way that we are trying to answer the questions that were asked in earlier mains, UPSC mains, this is just one way of answering those questions. There are multiple other ways where a similar or a same question can be answered in and answered with. So the reason that we are doing or I am doing these videos is that early on I realized the importance of understanding and analyzing previous year papers to better prepare for our attempts. So this is my humble attempt at this. So you are not forced to approach a question in the way that I am trying to explain or answer. The initiation or the goal here is to give you the process through which an answer can be developed. So without any further delay, let us get into the question number 1 itself. So here in General Studies paper 2, answer the questions in not more than 200 words each. Contents of the answer is more important than its length. All questions carry equal marks. So there are 20 questions. Each question carries 12.5 marks and you have to limit your answer to 200 words. The important aspect here is content of the answer. The quality and the content of the answer is far more important than your word limit, that is the length. Now let us analyze question number 1. Starting from inventing the basic structure doctrine, the judiciary has played a highly proactive role in ensuring that India develops into a thriving democracy. In light of the statement, evaluate the role played by judicial activism in achieving the ideals of democracy. They are asking for two important aspects in this regard. They are asking you to give a basic explanation of what is the doctrine of basic structure in constitution. Whenever we discuss the concept of basic structure in Indian polity, you must always get back to Keshwananda Bharati case of 1973. That is one aspect of the question. The second aspect of the question is judicial activism. They are not asking you to critique the presence or the existence of judicial activism, but they are asking you to evaluate the role that it has played in achieving the ideals of democracy. Now we are asked to give an example or a few examples as to how did judicial activism helped India in achieving its democratic ideals. That is how your answer to this question should probably be, right? Remember, the substance, the quality of the answer is far more important than the length of the answer. Quality of the answer is more important than length of the answer. With that in mind, let us go to question number 2. Again, though the federal principle is dominant in our constitution and that principle is one of its basic features, but it is equally true that federalism under the Indian constitution leans in favor of a strong center, a feature that militates against the concept of strong federalism? Now, this is an interesting question. Let us read the question once again. Though the federal principle is dominant in our constitution, and that principle is one of its basic features, but it is equally true that federalism under the Indian constitution leans in favor of a strong center, a feature that militates against the concept of strong federalism. Now they are asking the concept or the ideal of federalism in our constitution. The question itself is saying that while the constitution dominates or ideates the principles of federalism in our country, while doing the same, it also emphasizes on having a strong center which negates the principle of a strong federalism. That is what they are asking you to write. Now, a layman answer would be like giving a basic differentiation of a strong federalism or a strong federal policy, or a strong federality in our country, or a weak federal state in our country. So, what you have to do is chart out the principles of strong federalism while also giving an explanation as to the need for a strong center, and possibly conclude your answer by giving out the fact that a strong center will always ensure that the basic feature of federal principle which is dominant in our constitution survives. That can be one of your possible answers to this question. So you are essentially giving a differentiation of between a strong and a strong federal relationship or a federalism and weak federalism in a country. Particularly, this question is regarded to Indian constitution. We should limit ourselves to Indian state. Again, a comparative example is always a welcome sign, but don't go into weeds of the answer. Now coming to question number 3. The powers, privileges and immunities of Parliament and its members as envisaged in Article 105 of the Constitution leave room for a large number of uncodified and unenumerated privileges to continue. Assess the reasons for the absence of a legal codification of the parliamentary privileges. How can this problem be addressed? First, Article 105. Give an explanation on Article 105. What is Article 105? According to the Constitution of India, Article 105 simply states that the Constitution of India provides certain privileges to MPs. Particularly, the most important one is MPs being granted immunity from any action while they are performing their duties within Parliament. Right? The parallel here for MLAs is Article 194. That is simple. Now they are asking about, the question states that yes, Article 105 is well and good. But the problem with the article is it is not clearly defined. What are the issues with it? Right? You should talk about those. You should talk about what are the privileges that are given to parliamentary members, that is MPs. Now, what are the problems of having undefined regulations or undefined open-ended articles in our constitution, and what should be the process to address this, all while not trampling on the ideals of Article 105. That should be your conclusion. You should give certain solutions to the problem, but the solutions to the problem should not go against the ideals and the principles of the Article 105, where the immunity that was being granted to members of Parliament for carrying out their duties within Parliament is not impeded or trampled upon. That should be your basis for answering this question, right? Now moving on to question number 4. What do you understand by the concept of, or by the concept, freedom of speech and expression? Does it cover hate speech also? Why do the films in India stand on a slightly different plane from other forms of expression? Discussion. Now, this is a very lengthy, deep question. Now, the basic and the strong pillars of Indian constitution are being questioned in this, are being asked in this question. What is it? Article 19, fundamental right of every citizen of India to express or freedom of speech and freedom of expression. The second key word that is being inserted in this question is hate speech. This is a huge problem in our country. The constitution or the legal apparatus in our country has been or was unable to clearly define as to what constitutes towards hate speech or what constitutes as hate speech. So this is a landmine kind of a question. If you are not careful about it, it is going to go everywhere. Not only that, they are directly relating to those two topics to a specific scenario. The specific scenario in this regard is films in India. Why are films in India stand on a slightly different plane from other forms of expression? Right? They are asking why position of the film industry in our country is slightly different than other forms of arts that exist in our country. Very nuanced based question. The answer also should be in that regard. Now moving on to question number 5. Instances of president's delay in commuting death sentences has come under public debate as denial of justice. Should there be a time limit specified for president to accept or reject such petitions? Analyze. So first, Article 72 of Constitution, it grants the President of India the power to provide, reprieve, respite, pardon or commute punishment of a convicted person even in case of capital punishment. And remember, the Supreme Court has set precedences saying that the President can exercise this power given to him by the Constitution of India on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. He cannot take decisions on his own. The Supreme Court has laid down principles clearly stating that the President can take decisions in this regard, but it should be upon or based upon or arrived from the advice rendered to him by the Council of Ministers. See, this is an interesting question. They are asking commutation of death sentence by the President of India, the constitutionality of it that has been given to the post of President of India in our country by the Constitution, and since it is an open-ended thing because the Constitution empowers the President of India to provide pardon or commute punishment but not within a stipulated time frame. So they are asking about few examples and the judgments related in that regard, right? So moving on to question number 6. The size of the cabinet should be as big as governmental work justifies and as big as the Prime Minister can manage as a team. How far is the efficacy of a government then inversely related to the size of the cabinet? Discuss. So, very interesting question. So, they are specifically asking the size of the cabinet of any elected government in our country. So what does the Constitution of India in this regard says? In our country, the cabinet size has been fixed, right, by 15% of the parliament in uh, in Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. In Lok Sabha in that regard. Similarly, in the case of state legislature also. Now they are asking you to derive at a conclusion relating to or in relation to, does the functionality, the overall functioning of a cabinet is relevant or is related to the strength in the cabinet. So inversely proportional. They are simply asking, if the cabinet strength is high, does that mean that the efficiency of the government is going up, or does it affecting the efficiency of the government in an inverse way? With a huge cabinet, nothing is getting done. With a less cabinet, more work is getting done. So it's kind of a double-ended question. So simple question, you don't need much of an answer for it. See, it's about the responsibilities of the Prime Minister at the end of the day. It's about individual caliber, whether he can handle that much workload or not. If he's a person of that caliber, a smaller cabinet is always a welcome sign. That means that more accountability and more transparency, but that can also be the opposite case in that regard. But as I said, a double open-ended question. It entirely depends on the person who is being elected as the Prime Minister by the Council of Ministers. In that regard, political parties. Coming to question number 7. Through 100% FDI, though 100% FDI is already allowed in non-news media like a trade publication and general entertainment channel, the government is mulling over the proposal for increased FDI in news media for quite some time. What difference would an increase in FDI make? Critically evaluate the pros and cons. So, two things. What is FDI? What are the rules and regulations in FDA in regards to news media, right? Particularly uh, news media channels. That is what they're asking, and they're asking you to give out pros and cons of increasing the FDA in that regard. Simple answer, straight answer question. So give 2 or 3 points in pros, in 2 or 3 points in con, and conclude saying that yeah, this approach can be extended. It can be extended or it should increase depending on how you feel about it. And since information is a weapon in this multipolar world and a multidimensional world, the answer should be in that regard. NHRC in India can be most effective when its tasks are adequately supported by other mechanisms that ensure the accountability of a government. In light of above observation, assess the role of NHRC as an effective complement to the judiciary and other institutions in promoting and protecting rights standards. First is talk about National Human Rights Commission, the role it plays, why National Human Rights Commission should be supported and given the enough resources that it needs to function properly, and finally conclude the role that NHRC has been able to play in our country, where promotion of rights and protection of rights is a must according to constitution. That should be our approach to this question. Now moving on to the question number 10, it's simple. The penetration of self-help groups in rural areas in promoting participation in developmental programs is facing socio-cultural hurdles. Examine. Now this is a 2-point question. First, what are self-help groups? How effective have they been? The second part of the question, and the most important part of the question, what are the hurdles, particularly socio-cultural hurdles, that self-help groups or the participants of self-help groups are facing in their respective societies? They are asking you to examine those points. That is how you should go about this answer. So if you have liked the video, please like the video. My request is to share this video with your friends so that they do get uh, have the advantage of this. The third is, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. While you are subscribing, ensure that you click on the bell icon so that you don't miss updates as soon as the videos are uploaded. The most important thing you can do is please share the video with your friends. That is also a helpful thing to be done, not only to me but to your friends who are also preparing for competitive exams. Thanks for watching. Namaste.